From Dunlap High School, the stakes have not been higher since last March. It's the Mid-Illini Conference Tournament semifinals between the Washington Panthers and the top-seeded Dunlap Eagles. Thank you for joining us, everybody, alongside Joey Wright. I am Larry Larson, proud to present Clutch Sports Media's coverage of tournament basketball all March long. And Joey, this is going to be a great one between the fourth-seeded Panthers, top-seeded Eagles. We've seen both these teams play a lot this year, and both have a lot to offer, needless to say.
Both have so much to offer, Larry, and we saw Dunlap defeat Washington earlier this season. It's a Dunlap team that has only lost twice, ranked number 6 in the IHSA AP 3A poll entering this one. So a very good Dunlap team. They won their first ever Mid-Illini Conference regular season title last week, and of course, during a normal season, that would be the Mid-Illini Conference Championship. So a good Eagles team and a good Washington team that returns Claire McDougall to the floor tonight. She's been such a big part of the roster. She's not part of our key matchup, though. Yeah,
we take a look at that key matchup, and Joey, when you look at players, there's a lot of players you could go with for this matchup. Elle Sutter, Claire McDougall, but tonight the one we're looking at is Sophia Remmel and Georgia Duncan.
Yeah, Georgia Duncan, let's start there for Washington, leads the team, averaging nearly 14 points per game, 13.8 to be exact. Also a great rebounder is Duncan, so keep an eye on her, a versatile scorer. Kurt Pegler had a nice story on her last night on WMBD. She's going to play basketball, volleyball, and softball, all within the span of a couple of months. A grinder for Washington. For Dunlap, of course, it's Sophia Remmel. Sophia Remmel, 6th in the area in scoring for Adam Duvall with 16.2 points per game. And we'll talk about her all night long, but Washington will start things off tonight.
So you'll see on your screen in a moment. There it is. Georgia Duncan works it around into the right corner. Allie Scrivener. So we hit the starting 5 for you quick for Washington. It's Georgia Duncan. She misses her shot there. Claire McDougall, Allie Scrivener, Leah Jones, and Lucy Wilson. Dunlap goes immediately down low to Gabby Gillinardo, And Dunlap strikes first. McDougall going quick, and she gets the response.
Claire McDougall has missed a couple of games for Washington down the stretch of the season, was out due to injury, but Washington's so happy to see her back in the lineup tonight. A do-it-all player. Much like Duncan, she can score, and she can also snag some rebounds. The leading rebounder on the team, 9.5 a game.
Certainly a big piece, and she played a big role in these two teams' last matchup, Joey, so I'm sure Kim Barth is really happy to see her. And some of the bad losses this year for Washington have come without McDougall, notably that sweep by Metamora.
Yeah, they've been an interesting team without Claire McDougall because she also missed the Canton game right before that Metamora game, and Washington was able to run away with that with relative ease, a big win there. So, you know, they were a little inconsistent, to say the least, without McDougall. They're glad to see her back in the lineup tonight.
Tanaya Cummings lobs, trying to find DeGillinardo, and it's a turnover. It's one thing Dunlap can't afford to do.
It's exactly what McDougall brings to the table. Got in and swatted that pass down.
Scrivener works it around the arc. It's Lucy Wilson. Now Leah Jones, and there's McDougall. Very good passer as well. 3-ball too strong. And Scrivener was on the baseline.
One thing I'm interested to watch from Washington tonight is how they can penetrate the defense. When we saw them against Metamora in that 50-19 loss earlier this season, Metamora forced them to pass it so many times. They didn't allow anything open. It was hard for the Panthers to find the shot they wanted. So they've got to move the ball around, but they've also got to get those open looks.
Lily Sutter connects on the mid-range, and that's a shot we're going to see a lot from her tonight.
And it's easy for Dunlap to find open looks, but even if they're not open, Lily Sutter and Sophia Remmel can create. This Panthers defense is going to have to work very hard.
Mid-Illini Conference semifinal. Dunlap defeated East Peoria yesterday to get to this point. Washington, a 3 is short from Scrivener. They defeated Pekin yesterday, 48-40, so a little closer than Dunlap's matchup with East Peoria. Do you think that plays any sort of factor today?
Well, I think Washington, you know, it's what we're seeing earlier. They're coming off, they seem to be pretty engaged. They're coming off a big win against a good Pekin team. You know, that Pekin team has had some injuries down the stretch, but Dunlap, they kind of expected to win last night, and they did. So they're coming in off a very comfortable performance, but they've played well early on, although an unforced error there. You can't see a lot of those from either side if either of these teams wants to win tonight.
Pass tipped away from Bree Erickson. Just out of the reach of the sophomore. And now the junior, Lucy Wilson, walks it up for the Panthers.
A couple of Dunlap games we've done this season. We don't talk a lot about Bree Erickson, but she's that kind of point guard that can impact the game in a lot of different ways.
What a find and what a finish by Georgia Duncan. That awkward distance, but no problem for her.
Certainly
and now
not.
a steal. Leah Jones pokes it loose, and it's going to be an over and back. Panthers forcing mistakes early on, playing with great tenacity on the defensive end.
And that's how you have to play against this Dunlap team. This Dunlap team, they've got so many scorers. It's Remmel and it's Lily Sutter, but then you also look at the likes of Erickson, who doesn't score a lot but can knock him in. We'll see Julie Solberger off the bench. Got to play a complete defensive game against this Dunlap team. Obviously, the best team in the Mid-Illini Conference in the regular season.
Sophia Remmel, shifty on the dribble, through contact, count the bucket, and one. She's fired up early on, Joey.
As well she should be. Only a sophomore, and Sophia Remmel can impact the game in so many ways when we talk about scoring. Those off-balance shots, those shots after contact, you can never count her out of a play, pardon me.
It's hard to count her out, just so good, can create shots on the perimeter and inside, and we take this mask timeout to remind you that tonight's coverage is brought to you by Jake Weston State Farm in Washington. For all your insurance needs, call 309-444-4441. It's Jake Weston from State Farm. And by Uftring Weston Chevy Cadillac in Peoria. From the iconic Silverado and Blazer to the luxurious Cadillac XT4 and Escalade, Uftring Weston offers world-class sales and service right here in Peoria. Visit UfteringWeston.com today. And by Uftring Chevy in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selection, savings, and more for your trade. UfteringChevy.com. And by Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. UfteringPekin.com. And out of the mask timeout, Sophia Remmel to the free throw stripe. Just knocked down a layup and the foul. She is 6th in the area with 16.2 points per game. Stats curated by the PJ Stars' Adam Duvall. Can't knock in the free throw, and Dunlap can't capitalize on the second chance opportunity.
And Remmel's well on her way now with just the 2 points. Free throw didn't fall, but as we said, Remmel can score in a lot of different ways. Could be from the perimeter, could be down low with contact. Those off-balance shots, the shots with contact are really where she can impact a game. And keep an eye for Dunlap defensively on number 12, Lily Sutter. I think she is the player with the biggest ability to make a defensive impact in this one.
Joey, her defensive impact was profound in Dunlap's triple overtime victory over Metamora that we saw on ClutchSportsIL.com earlier this season. She also scored 21 points, so not to mention that. Duncan inside. She's got 4.
Yes, 4 indeed. Sutter that might be the greatest all-around performance we've seen on our airwaves this season, and we'll talk about that a little later on, but keep an eye on her. Defensively, she can rebound, she can create steals, she can force a lot of problems.
Duncan tries to make it 2 in a row and can't. To Gillinardo with the board. Nia Cummings walks it up. Now it's Sutter on it. Sutter, somebody who can score inside, but really a distributor. Speaking of scores, Sophia Remmel connects on her first tray. She's got 5 points.
Right on cue, a nice distribution. And a rebound. How about that?
Sutter jets ahead across the Eagle into the paint. She's trying to go coast to coast and does.
Caught the defense off guard. And now Dunlap starting to control the tempo here. So Washington, see if they can create those looks.
Duncan gets a look from 15.
A nice look there from Duncan. Biggest undoing when Washington played Metamora a couple weeks ago was the fact that they just couldn't create anything. They had to make so many passes.
Cummings was partially blocked.
Easy rebound there, but Washington is going to be a better team if they can keep playing quick and keep playing in transition.
McDougal is fouled, and Joey, that kind of goes back to McDougal's absence, because that goes to show you Washington's offense really runs through the paint, runs through the middle. They don't shoot on the outside a lot. They'll shoot the mid-range, but it really runs through those two forwards, Duncan and McDougal.
It really does. And, you know, we mentioned it was weird because they played Canton a couple nights before that one and won that one pretty easily. So an offense that, we'll quiet down for the free throw, an offense that can succeed without a player, even a key player like McDougal, but not an offense that can do that consistently. And against good personnel, and of course Metamora, a little better than Canton was. A little better might be an understatement this past season. Canton, or Metamora I should say, playing Morton right now in the other semifinal.
That'll be something we're trying to keep an eye on. Here's Sutter again to the right block. The drive and dish results in a turnover. There's McDougal dribbling through traffic. Nice dish to Duncan, but she walked. But Joey, there you see that chemistry between Duncan and McDougal, and even though McDougal's a forward, she's so agile and very skilled on the dribble.
She absolutely is, and you know, much like we talked about with Remmel, Duncan can do a lot on the dribble, and you know, she can find lanes, and she can get into spaces. Makes her a tough player to guard.
Lily Sutter finds Remmel. She's got the range from here. Doesn't pop it there. Bree Erickson, part of the strong guard core. Floater a little too hard there. Now the Panthers want to run it in transition. Scrivener's pull up. Rebound to Gillinardo. And now we see the pace slow down a little bit. But Joey, you're right in the sense that Dunlap has really dictated this pace, as is evident by their 2-point lead.
Certainly, and even the last couple of possessions, we saw Sutter, the coast-to-coast a moment ago. You know, when they started really running it up and down the floor, Washington can adapt to that, but it took them a minute.
Leah Jones, the mid-ranger. Bank isn't open. We've seen a lot of mid-range shots from Washington, not a lot at point-blank range.
We haven't, and, you know, the mid-range is something that, you know, we'll see both these teams continue to take mid-range shots as the game goes along. I will say, though, overall, pretty balanced so far. You can tell that Washington has come to play against the tournament's top seed, and I think it's going to continue to be like this the rest of the way through.
Erickson's high arcing three. Well off, and the rebound eventually falls to Washington. McDougal walks it up. Scrivener from the corner.
See the Panthers trying to keep the Eagles honest there with that three.
Erickson's floater is off. So many quick possessions for both teams. One shot and done. There's Vaughn. Her one shot. Washington will get an opportunity, and McDougal was fouled on the reverse attempt. Joey, that would have been tough for her to knock down. Her back was to the basket, but she earns a trip to the stripe.
Yeah, and when you're going down low to the interior, you know, you might not always get the basket, but if you can draw contact and get to the line, gives you a chance to earn them just the same.
And she earns the first. McDougal has 4 points. 13.2 points per game. Part of Washington's star duo with Georgia Duncan. Chance to tie early on for McDougal here. She can't, but she chases down her own miss. Good ball movement for the Panthers. Duncan open from the corner, and she got it. It's a 4-point possession for the Panthers.
And Washington, Larry, can't recall if they maybe led really early on, but this is their first real meaningful lead of the game here as the first quarter starts to wind down.
Sutter looking inside for Solberger. Now Dunlap with the opportunity to hold for the remainder of the opening frame. They won't. Erickson is off.
And if I'm Washington, I would hold this.
McDougal says, I want this shot. Now the Eagles with another chance. Chandler Fassett has it poked away, and no team will get a shot up at the buzzer. And Joey, I would say that's the first half in a nutshell. We'll get to that in a moment, but we take this break to remind you that tonight's coverage is brought to you by Jake Weston State Farm in Washington. For all your insurance needs, call Jake from State Farm at 309-444-4441. It's Jake from State Farm. And by Uftring Weston Chevy Cadillac in Peoria. From the iconic Silverado and Blazer to the luxurious Cadillac XT4 and Escalade, Uftring Weston offers world-class sales and service right here in Peoria. Visit UfteringWeston.com today. And by Uftering Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selection, savings, and more for your trade. UfteringChevy.com. And by Uftering Dodge Jeep Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftering Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. UfteringPekin.com. We thank you for joining us tonight, and we thank Uftering and Jake Weston for their partnership throughout the season. It's the Mid-Illini Conference semifinal. Winner moves on to tomorrow's championship game. Loser goes home for the season. And Joey, in that first quarter, it was a quick-moving one, a lot of tempo and a lot of pace.
A lot of tempo, a lot of pace, a lot of missed baskets too, but a lot of chances. You know, it was kind of run down the floor, get that quick shot, other team gets the rebound, okay, let's go the other way. So we'll see if maybe we see an increased efficiency here in the second quarter, but both teams have gotten good looks. Those misses are not for a lack of opportunities.
Patient possession for Dunlap to open the quarter. Doesn't pay off. DeGianardo can't get a hold on the board, and now Washington will have a chance to strike first.
And I tell you, we've seen higher scoring first quarters this year, but we've also seen lower scoring first quarters and slower pace first quarters. So I would expect that tempo to continue, and I would expect that the score will continue to increase. I think both teams will heat up from the field.
McGinnis in the corner, going to work on Remmel. She has it tipped away, stifling D by the Eagles.
It's exactly what Dunlap needs to do defensively. They've got to force Washington to pick that ball up and pass it or take a bad shot.
Remmel, short. Now here's Wilson in transition. It's 2-on-1. She doesn't care, and she's fouled.
What a take there from Lucy Wilson. I mean, that looked like a track meet, two Dunlap sprinters and Lucy Wilson right there. And that just tells you that Washington wants to up that tempo, and they want to get to the basket. And Lucy, that was a great effort.
Wilson knocks down the first. She's averaging about 1.8 points per game so far this season. Shooting just 26% from the floor, but as long as you can get to the bucket, get to the stripe, and find a way, which she does there. She provides some key bench points for the Panthers, but she goes just 1 for 2 at the stripe. Washington ahead by 3. Sutter, another mid-range. That's her spot. Doesn't down it there. Now the Panthers slow it down, and it looks like McDougal is injured, Joey. That is not what the Panthers want to see. Looks like she's grabbing for her right leg, not putting much pressure on it. Being attended to by the trainer and Kim Barth.
Yeah, the trainer right there, and just I didn't see exactly what happened, but she was down there and she has stopped and still on her feet. You see her there, but certainly hope that she's okay and she will be helped to the bench, and that is not good. Obviously, foremost, you put the game aside and you hope that she is okay. The game irrelevant at the end of the day in that regard, but we've talked about how Washington was forced to play a couple of games this season without her. They'll have to get back to that. So in that regard, it'll be interesting to see how the next couple of minutes develop. But, of course, first and foremost, as she's now on the bench, the trainer is looking at her. We hope she's okay. We hope she returns. Do our best to pass along an update to you if we get one.
It's always tough when it looked like a non-contact thing, so you never know with those. Scrivener down low to Duncan. She's going to have to replace a lot of that production, and she does there. As Duncan is lighting it up early on, she's got 11. Dunlap can't get the response to go, and now Washington is really firing on all cylinders. Duncan ahead to the rack, blocked by Sutter.
Wow. And you can hear the Dunlap bench coming alive, and the Dunlap parents enjoyed that. Our feed, we have the computer set up right in front of us, and as we take a look at that, that was clean. And she celebrates afterwards. And Larry, we talked earlier how Lily Sutter can impact the game.
Georgia Duncan is impacting the game right now, though. She's got 14 of Washington's 19.
I don't think she didn't like being blocked, we'll say that. Answers the call.
How does Sutter respond? It's Remmel, the baseline J. Tanaya Cummings can't come out with the rebound, and a melee ensues, resulting in a jump ball. It will go with the Panthers.
So Georgia Duncan has stepped up in the absence of Claire McDougal, and Washington did play a couple of games without Claire McDougal earlier this season, so from that standpoint, they've been in this situation before, and they kind of know what sets to run and know how to space the floor a little bit with the personnel they have. But they haven't really had to use anyone else but Duncan since that moment a couple of moments ago.
Washington working on the Dunlap zone defense. In case you're just joining us, the Mid-Illini Conference semifinal. Winner goes to the title game tomorrow, and Duncan wants to be there badly. Wow, she is lighting it up, 17 points.
It is, I believe that's a 10-0 run or an 11-0 run for Washington. Check that in a minute, but
9-0 run in this second quarter. Dunlap is yet to score. Fassett tries to change that. She can't.
Now it's Washington that is controlling the tempo, and Duncan has the ball in hand here. We'll see how she plays it, and a foul called there. Dunlap a little flustered right now, I think.
They certainly are, Joey, and they'll get an opportunity to talk it over in the masked timeout. We'll get to that in a moment, but we want to take this break to remind you that tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Jake Weston State Farm in Washington. Call 309-444-4441 for all your insurance needs. It's Jake from State Farm. And by Uftring Weston Chevy Cadillac in Peoria, from the iconic Silverado and Blazer to the luxurious Cadillac XT4 and Escalade. Uftring Weston offers world-class sales and service right here in Peoria. Visit UfteringWeston.com today. And by Uftring Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selection, savings, and more for your trade. UfteringChevy.com. And by Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. UfteringPekin.com. Lot on the line here at Dunlap High School. It's the #1 seeded Eagles. Down, certainly not out, but they're having a stagnant second quarter, Joey. Washington on a 9-0 run in this quarter. Probably a little bit more than that if you take the first quarter into account, but Washington now playing without one of its stars. Claire McDougal went down with a knee injury a few moments ago. Georgia Duncan between the circles. Now Scrivener inside. Vaughn will try to drive. The skip pass. Wilson can't capitalize. Not sure what the call is here. It's going to be a jump ball, simultaneous possession.
First one we've seen tonight, and as you see, that'll stay with Dunlap. And so here we are. So Dunlap, Larry, I think if I'm Heather Cassidy and I'm calling the plays here, calling the shots, I slow it down a little bit. Well, that's why I'm not calling the shots.
The quick pace results in Solberger getting to the line. The 5'6" freshman has played a nice bench role for Heather Cassidy and company. 4.2 points per game, 2.2 rebounds. As you can hear, a pin drop. She doesn't drop the first. Limited attendance tonight, but there are fans on the other side of the gym, in the upper part of the bleachers, opposite of us.
Yeah, it looks like about 30 of them.
Solberger knocks down the second. She's got 1 point. And Dunlap is on the board in the second frame, down by 10. Fadeaway looked like it was partially blocked. Kimler couldn't get the iron, but now Dunlap, Joey, perhaps with a little bit of momentum.
And I tell you what, we've got another feed here that we're looking at a little behind. Looked like it might have been tipped, but Dunlap gets the break. And I think, yeah, if you're Dunlap, you keep attacking like you did that last basket. If you can get to the line, that works great. You have a chance to earn some free points. You can see it looks like they're slowing it down a little bit here, relatively so, looking for that open shot.
Remmel looks to create her own. She does. Too strong. DeGilinardo needs to get out of the paint. Back to Remmel. Just 5 points for the sophomore star early on.
Gillenardo passed up a chance at what would have been a pretty deep three. And yeah, Dunlap, you can tell, passing more than they have.
Sutter off balance. That's her shot. Sutter with 6. Vaughn on the dribble drive. Now Dunlap with a chance to put together even more of a run.
And now you've controlled the pace a little bit. You've slowed it down. You can get back to controlling it.
Big shot was off by Remmel.
Until that time, they tried to up the tempo and run and gun a little bit.
Duncan. She says, anything you can do, I can do better. She's got 19 only in the first half. Remmel in some trouble. Solberger. Left block, and a block is called on Vaughn. Joey, that's one thing about Carly Vaughn. She's always on the floor, one of those spark pieces off the bench for Kim Barth. Always trying to take charges, always trying for the hustle plays, but goes the opposite way that time.
Yeah, and all you can do is put yourself in that position, and Vaughn checks out for Madeline McGinnis, who plays much the same way. Saw her make a lot of those plays against Pekin a couple of weeks ago.
Lauren Field with it. She led the team in scoring yesterday against East Peoria in a big Dunlap victory. Remmel, the no-look pass.
Field a great perimeter shooter, so keep an eye on her in the corner.
Off-balance take by Solberger. And another jump ball, our third of the night, goes back to the Panthers. Joey, anytime you get a playoff game, you're going to see a lot of physicality, especially on the boards. And that has certainly been no exception tonight.
Certainly, and Dunlap's played a lot of games that they have treated like playoff games and have had that big playoff atmosphere. Go back to the Morton game a couple of weeks ago, a week ago it would have been.
Great ball movement results in 2 for Addison Kimler. 5'10 junior forward stepping up in the absence of McDougal, who was injured a few minutes ago at the start of the quarter. And an air ball will send it back with Washington, looking to build on a 12-point lead. And a timeout is taken by Heather Cassidy and Dunlap. Joey, our first taken timeout of the night, probably a good one.
I think so. Dunlap has just been a little bit out of sorts here in this second quarter. But if you're not Eagles fans, we saw the 3-overtime game in Metamora a couple of weeks ago now. The season's only been about a month and a week, but it feels like so long ago. But in that one, they fell behind early, and they were able to put some points together, especially in that third quarter. Came back and won it. Took a couple of overtime periods to do that. But Larry, it's not a question that I've asked Heather Cassidy or the couple of coaches we've spoken to over the season. The Mid-Illini Conference and the Big 12 Conference, couple conferences, you've got the regular season championship and then the tournament title. Playing the tournament, of course, is a byproduct of not having an IHSA postseason this year. Would be curious to know how these teams have treated it, because Dunlap has really celebrated that regular season conference title, and of course they want the tournament title as well, but it's got to be fun having a chance to bring home 2 pieces of, if figurative, hardware.
Oh, 100%. You got to wonder, will teams hang a banner for the tournament title as well? Addison Kimler, 2 straight buckets for her on back-to-back possessions. Washington, though, Joey, let's not talk about banners yet, especially for Dunlap, because Panthers are firing on all cylinders. Remmel, not enough. Now Washington's going to slow it down, probably wise.
I think so, and you've got just under a minute left now. I think it's too early to say hold for the final shot, but certainly hold for a couple seconds. Scratch that.
It's going to be a block. So Duncan will go to the line with the opportunity to get to 20 points with still about a minute left in the second quarter. Joey, this is an individual performance unlike any other that we've really seen on ClutchSportsIL.com this season.
Don't think we've seen a first half quite like this. She's off on the free throw. We saw Ethan Kaiser have a big first half against Roanoke Benson, the Metamora star.
25, I think, in the first.
That's right.
First half.
That was right after the Dunlap game. That was the same day as their 3-overtime game. But Georgia Duncan, this is a little different, Larry, because she has stepped up kind of largely out of necessity. McDougal went down earlier, and Duncan has stepped up and kind of offset that loss.
She does indeed get to 20 points, and Washington's lead gets to 15. Joey, if you would have told me before this game that a team would be heading to the locker room with a 15-point lead, I think I would have guessed Dunlap, right?
As what I have as well. No, that's certainly what we would have had reason to believe. A foul called there, and that won't put us in the bonus. Dunlap will inbound. It's been a great first half for Washington. The second quarter especially, they found another gear. And just a quick update on Claire McDougal. She got tape on her ankle I saw a couple of moments ago, and she's kind of walking around behind the baseline.
Little miscommunication on the Dunlap inbound. Cummings gets out of trouble. Eagles with plenty of time. Dunlap took both regular season matchups between these two squads, but you know what they say, it's hard to beat a team 3 times. The runner, not enough, and Washington heads to the locker room up 29-14, despite the injury to Claire McDougal. Joey, what a first half performance by Kim Barth's squad.
Washington has stepped up in every area. The second quarter, great for the Panthers, and Georgia Duncan with, as you said, one of the best individual first halves we've seen this season. 20 or 21 points for her unofficial tally, of course. We'll get you the real deal at the other side of the halftime break, but nevertheless, Duncan has stepped up. I mean, she's hitting from everywhere. She's gone inside, she's gone outside, she's gotten to the free throw line, she's made plays on defense. She has been the difference maker, and, you know, credit Washington's other players as well. Of course, they're facilitating, they're matching that tempo, they're getting up and down the floor, especially on defense. Washington has looked really good. Of course, Dunlap only scored 3 points in that second frame, so a complete game and a great first half for the Panthers. But Dunlap, as we talked about a moment ago, don't count them out one bit.
Joey, I want to revisit our keys to the game, which we showed briefly in the pregame show, and you talked about that tempo for Washington. They've certainly pumped it up.
They have, and I go back, the biggest reason I said that was because watching that Metamora game, they had no tempo. It was Metamora that controlled that whole game, start to finish. They forced Washington, to pass, and you know they could never really find that open look. They couldn't penetrate the defense and get inside. That led to a lot of missed shots, didn't lead to a lot of scoring, if anything else. Keep them honest. You know, Washington has kept them honest, I'd say. They're scoring from a little bit of everywhere. What I meant by that was kind of the three-point ball, but they haven't really needed that three-point shot with how consistent they've been. And don't get stuck. That also kind of lent itself to the passing and having to create those shots, get inside and score, break the defense. Dunlap.
Joey, the one thing, sorry to cut you off, the one thing that jumps out to me for Dunlap is key the outside shooters. That's been their hallmark all season, and we haven't seen a lot of threes going down for them.
We haven't, but they've gotten those looks. You know, it's just been kind of a cold first half. They've taken some of those perimeter looks. They've really been active from the mid-range by the looks of things there in the first half, but didn't get a lot to fall, and I don't think Dunlap is in big trouble. You know, you look at that 15-point deficit, you think Washington has got the upper hand, but based on how we've seen Dunlap play this season, they're not out of it. I think they'll have a big third quarter. They've gotten those looks. They haven't scored. They got started early well enough. It was kind of back and forth for much of that first quarter. But, yeah, it's been the Washington Panthers show here as we enter the halftime break.
And it has been the Georgia Duncan show. 20 points at halftime for the junior guard forward, surpassing her average and then some of 13.8 points per game. We will take a brief break for halftime, come back with more stats, and get you set for the second half of action. It's the Mid-Illini Girls Basketball Tournament semifinals on ClutchSportsIL.com. Thanks for joining us. We'll be right back. Welcome back inside Dunlap High School. Clutch Sports Media's coverage of girls basketball, and we take a look at the highlights between these two teams the last time they met up in Washington. ClutchSportsIL.com covered that one for you, and Dunlap came out on top in that one, 48-43. And Joey, we saw a lot of highlights in that one. You saw the effect of the outside shooting and Georgia Duncan, as well as Claire McDougal for Washington in that one.
Yeah, Claire McDougal was such a big part of that game. Dunlap ultimately was a little bit stronger, but, you know, highlights on both sides. A big three there from Dunlap, and it was ultimately a pretty good win. But you see Washington was able to penetrate the defense, go high-low a couple times, you know, throw some things at that Dunlap attack. And
Remmel from the corner on this one, but Joey, the one thing I want to point out from that matchup that perhaps could relate to this one, of course the score is somewhat reversed, is the third quarter is really where Dunlap took control in that one. And needless to say, Washington is ahead here by a wide margin of 15 points, but the third quarter is where things can often be won or lost.
Well, and Dunlap's a third quarter ball club based on the couple of times we've seen them this season. They were down, and forgive me, I don't know the deficit exactly against Metamora there at the halftime break, but it was 10, 12, 13 points, and they were able to come back, post a big third and fourth quarter, come back and ultimately win that one, of course, in 3 overtime periods. But a team that can, you know, they're not going to be overly fazed by this 15-point deficit. When we see either one of these teams, though, you know, we've seen some wild first halves. Washington in that Metamora game was held scoreless through Metamora's first 21 points, and overall it was not a very good afternoon to be a Panthers fan, but I think they'll be okay. Third quarter gets underway a little bit early here, but
it's Mid-Illini Conference girls basketball semifinal. I forgot to bring the headset mic down. I thought
I was going to do that earlier today.
Happens to the best of us, folks. Larry Larson, Joey Wright, Evan Johnson at the controls for us. ClutchSportsIL.com. Dunlap working on a comeback. It was a big second quarter for the Panthers, and they limited Dunlap to just 3 points in the second quarter, and that's really what has cued them to this big lead. Eagles being very patient. Ranked 6th in the state in 3A entering this one, and the patience pays off. Gabby DiGilinardo, knocks in the layup there. She's got 4 points.
And that's what Dunlap needs. Now they need to stop, and they need to keep building on this. Looks like they're settling back into a 2-3 zone defensive look. And now Remmel will come out and guard Wilson. Wilson has been an aggressive player for Washington, had a big take to the basket during that second quarter.
Georgia Duncan from just in front of the stripe, and she picks up where she left off in the first half. 20 points in the first half. Those are her first 2 in the second. Remmel. Short on the runner, and a push is called. Looks like it's going to be on Washington. It's going to be on Kimler, her second foul of the evening. Joey, I do want to briefly touch on some scores that we got from around the Mid-Illini Conference. Morton boys ahead of Metamora boys by 1 at the end of one quarter, and the Metamora girls down by 1 to the Morton girls at halftime. So the winner of this game will play the winner of Metamora Morton tomorrow in the championship matchup. That game will tip off at about 4 p.m. as you start to see the Eagles starting to get a little momentum after that foul call. You saw Remmels let out a scream. They're fired up, Joey. I wonder what Heather Cassidy said in the halftime locker room.
And it had to be something to the effect of stay the course, we'll be okay. We've sailed these seas before. And it just starts with stops and scores, simple things. See if they try to go inside.
Remmel, a nice move.
No need to go inside, and that was functionally very similar to what Georgia Duncan did a couple of times ago down the floor for Washington. You kind of scan, you look for some open teammates, realize you don't have any options, and create a shot, and that was a beautiful look from Remmel. Turned around and dropped it down.
Dunlap defense providing a lot of energy right now. Lucy Wilson to Duncan. She's double teamed. Eagles going with a bit of a different look with this zone. See Duncan step up. You see the defense step up. Now Duncan stepped out on this right corner as you see her in the bottom right of your screen if the camera pans.
Last Panthers score, they looked for Duncan at the elbow, and Duncan kind of created a shot. That mid-range, Larry, has been really the primary means of scoring tonight. We've seen a couple of points down low, the occasional perimeter shot.
There's Duncan. She gets a touch, and she dribbles right back out.
Yeah, and Washington in no hurry here, but it's that 8 to kind of 14-foot range.
Wow, and Joey, that's the effect that Duncan has. She draws the double team. It opens up Kimler down low. She picks up the score, and Dunlap takes the timeout.
Yeah, and Washington has opened it right back up. If you're just joining us here recently, 29-14 at the half, back to a 15-point lead.
I want to take this break to remind you that tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Jake Weston State Farm in Washington. Call 309-444-4441, one of the easiest phone numbers to remember in the entire Peoria area. It's Jake Weston from State Farm. And by Uftring Weston Chevy Cadillac in Peoria, from the iconic Silverado and Blazer to the luxurious Cadillac XT4 and Escalade. Uftring Weston offers world-class sales and service right here in Peoria. Visit UfteringWeston.com today. And by Uftring Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selections, savings, and more for your trade. UfteringChevy.com. And by Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. UfteringPekin.com. Out of the third quarter mask timeout. Washington with the momentum. In case you're just joining us, it was a big second quarter for the Panthers that has boosted them out to a big lead in this Mid-Illini Conference Girls Tournament semifinal game. Top-seeded Eagles need something to happen here, Joey, and why not Sophia Remmel to make it happen? Their leading scorer hands off to Erickson.
You're Dunlap here. You've just got to attack this one possession at a time. You're not going to get this whole 15-point deficit back in one fell swoop, but, you know, set guidelines, set goals, cut it to X amount of points by X amount of time on the clock.
Erickson, open look from 15, off the heel.
And I'm feeling okay. You know, we've still got just over half of this third quarter left. If you can get it to 10 points by, you know, that 1 minute mark or, 30 seconds left in the quarter, I think I'm feeling okay, even at the end of the half. If you can get it to 10 points or less next couple of minutes going into the fourth quarter, if I'm Dunlap, I feel like I'm going to be okay.
Comeback expert Joey Wright. It's funny, we have this conversation every time you get a deficit like this, and you're right. You just got to take it chunk by chunk. Lots of basketball left in this one, and we've seen how easy these games can swing, especially when one team can shoot the three like Dunlap can.
Yeah, all it takes is one. You've just got to see one go through the net. See that twine snap up a little bit. And it changes things mentally. You start feeling okay. You realize you can get back to those basics. If you're Washington, you've got to keep pressing, and as they press, Dunlap forces a big turnover.
Bree Erickson jets ahead, high off the glass, can't get the roll. So another one-and-done possession for the Eagles. And now Washington will continue to take its time.
Yeah, and if you're Washington, no reason to be in a hurry here. The big thing if you're Washington is you certainly want to keep playing, you want to keep pressing, you want to keep attacking, but don't beat yourself up. Don't force it, don't turn the ball over or anything like that as a result of playing too quick. Make them come to you a little bit here, and the Panthers are doing a good job of that, running some time off the clock. Lily Sutter nearly got into the passing lane there, but overall I like how the Panthers are controlling the tempo right now.
Almost a turnover there as the pass was tipped. You're certainly right, Joey Wright.
I like how you did that.
Of course.
And it's
low-hanging fruit.
The door was open for you. It's a testament to Dunlap's personnel, though. We've seen as Washington is trying to slow it down. Sutter nearly intercepted a pass a moment ago. Remmel got a hand on it. So it's not going to be easy if you're Washington.
Duncan through the triple team, and Joey, I will say we have seen something similar to this from the Washington Panthers boys team when they held the ball for 2 straight minutes to end the first half in a rivalry game against Metamora last season. Now it looks like the Panthers are going to employ some sort of similar tactic here as Jones wide open underneath but can't capitalize. What a way to finish that possession. Erickson, the complete opposite, goes right to the rack just like she did on last possession, and the same exact result. She's short.
Well, Leah Jones didn't convert on that for Washington, but I don't think she had to. Washington ran off minute and a half, 2 minutes off the clock there, and Dunlap, that possession took all of 8-10 seconds, if that, and ended with a miss. And you're right, this is an Eric Schermerhorn-esque tactic. We've seen him do this a couple of times this season as well on the boys' side of things, not quite to the extent we saw in Metamora last year, but yeah, that Washington boys team, not afraid to slow it down. And you've got to realize tempo in a basketball game can flip on a dime. I think Washington knows that, and they've looked good, you know, since that mass timeout, which was, what, about the 5-minute mark? They've been very slow and methodical.
Georgia Duncan will trigger it in. She's been the big story tonight. Leads all scorers with 22 points. A behemoth 20-point performance in the first half to really help Washington boost themselves to a 15-point halftime lead. They have not looked back, and it was a quick first half. Really high-paced tempo for both squads, and now Washington, as you mentioned, Joey, has been in control of a slow pace in the third quarter, and Lucy Wilson will head to the stripe as Sutter hacked her.
Yeah, and only 2 of those 22 points, as you just said, Larry, for Georgia Duncan coming in half number 2, but that was a big basket we saw a moment ago, now several moments ago, I suppose, as she turned around and kind of created a nice look, and that put the Panthers lead, I think, back at 13 or 15 at the time.
Scrivener shook her defender, and now we had a foul on the floor. I think that one's going to go against DeGilinardo, and it will.
It's her third, so she'll have to be careful. It looks like Dunlap will bring in a substitution next dead ball, probably for her.
They force the turnover. Field quickly ahead. Dunlap could sure use a bucket here. Washington has chewed the clock for most of this third quarter. Field into the corner. Solberger on the drive. DeGilinardo shakes a defender. Can't convert. Out off of Washington. So Dunlap has new life on the possession. But Joe, you feel like they got to capitalize here.
Oh, they absolutely do. Chandler Fassett in for DeGilinardo, and you don't need anything fancy. You don't need a 3. You don't need a, some incredible basket. You just need to see one go through. That would put it at least a 13-point game.
Solberger, the dribble drive, the off-balance take. She has not been able to convert on a lot of those tonight. We've seen that shot from her a few times. Now Washington will undoubtedly take the last shot of the quarter. If they get one off, and they won't, they're just going to let the buzzer sound. And why not? Kim Barth's Panthers ahead on the top-seeded Eagles, 33-18. And we take this break in the Mid-Illini Conference Girls Semifinal. To remind you that tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Jake Weston from State Farm in Washington. Call 309-444-4441 for all your insurance needs. It's Jake from State Farm. And by Uftring Weston Chevy Cadillac in Peoria. From the iconic Silverado and Blazer to the luxurious Cadillac XT4 and Escalade, Uftring Weston offers world-class sales and service right here in Peoria. Visit UfteringWeston.com today. And by Uftring Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selection, savings, and more for your trade. UfteringChevy.com. And finally, by Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. UfteringPekin.com. And Washington getting a pretty good bottom dollar in this game, I would say.
I would agree. A quick scoreboard update, Larry, as we start this fourth quarter of play. They're also about to start the fourth quarter, Metamora and Morton. That is at Morton, and Morton is ahead 27-26. So razor-thin margin there. All three games now they've played have been kind of low scoring in the 20s and 30s. Morton won both regular season games in that series, but Metamora hanging around. Going to be interesting to see how that one wraps up.
So, Joey, quick scenarios here. Washington, the 4 seed, Dunlap, the 1 seed, Morton, the 2 seed, and Metamora, the 3 seed. If Dunlap wins this game, they get home court no matter what. If Washington wins this game and plays Morton, well, if Washington wins this game, they're going to be on the road no matter what. Kim Barth takes a timeout after Washington can't inbound. But if Metamora wins that game and Washington wins this game, that game will be at Metamora tomorrow for the Mid-Illini Conference Tournament Championship. And in all likelihood, we will be there at the Girls' Championship if it's anywhere but Morton.
That's right. And, you know, Morton has a phenomenal thing going with Morton Potter's TV. They put on a good production. So they'll have that one if it's at Morton, and that game is probably streaming. You know, they're covering that now because they're playing at Morton. They do a good job. They'll have that for you if it's at Morton. But, yeah, if we're playing in Metamora tomorrow, I would say we're there. And Washington has the upper hand. We assume a Washington victory only for those scenarios. Of course, Dunlap wins, as you said. We're right back here. But
of course, you can always catch our coverage for free on CliffSportsIL.com.
Right.
Ball's inbounded into the backcourt. Washington able to get it in a little easier that time. As Vaughn dances on the dribble, plays catch with Lucy Wilson in the backcourt. And Joey, if Dunlap doesn't start picking up some momentum, picking up some scores as well, it's going to be tough for them to come back in this one the way that Washington has controlled the tempo, but they force a turnover there. Now they need to capitalize.
They've got to go, but you can hear the energy. The Dunlap bench has come alive. The players on the floor animated after that. Remmel and company very happy to have forced that turnover, but you got to hit baskets to get back into this.
Lauren Field had 14 points yesterday, none today. Here's Remmel with 7. Tried to get the ball down low. I'm not sure if that was a pass or a shot attempt. Could have gone either way. Either way, it's a foul on the floor. And Joey, it looked like that was indeed a pass attempt by Remmel, so that's why that call was on the floor. And Remmel will inbound. She lobs it into the backcourt to Sutter. Sutter, a quiet offensive night for her. Tanaya Cummings, that's pure.
Cummings is a player that has stepped up in big moments for Dunlap all season long. Often, you know, the couple of times we've seen Dunlap, she hasn't maybe been the player to watch the first 3 quarters, but you go back to that Metamora game, she stepped up late kind of out of nowhere. So keep an eye on Tanaya Cummings, 32 in white the rest of the way through.
She is sneaky. She's also got some sneaky range from beyond the arc. In addition to that mid-range game, and Scrivener stepped on the baseline, and the Dunlap fans and bench explode. Hold on to your hats. Here come the Eagles.
Kim Barth looked like she might have. They won't take a timeout. If I'm Washington, I might take a timeout here, though. And we'll hold on.
Substitution.
Substitution's coming in. If I'm Washington, I maybe think about getting to that timeout pretty quick. Dunlap has come out of the gate strong in this fourth quarter. They've only cut 2 points into that lead, but they've got momentum. I think Washington's going to have to quell this before it grows any further.
Dunlap looking to trail by less than 10 for the first time since the second quarter. And Remmel can't knock it down, and a foul is going to be called on Lauren Field on the backcourt pressure. Big rebound for Washington, Joey, but you know, looking at Dunlap, it didn't look like they were crashing the boards much at all offensively, which is kind of surprising.
A little bit. Remmel took that shot and immediately was headed down the floor. Big steal.
Sutter cashes in. She's got 8 points. And now Dunlap finally capitalizing. That lead cut to 11 for the Panthers. They led by 15 at the half. They held it there in the third quarter. Can the Eagles finally cut in? Duncan can't get it to go. Big possession for the Eagles. Not before Leah Jones tries to get a piece of the basketball. Jones will be called for the foul. That's her second. Team's third. Dunlap has fouled 5 times. So Washington is drawing 1 foul draw away from the bonus.
And this game, the mood of this game, kind of the whole vibe has flipped. Dunlap still down 11, but they have controlled the tempo. They've played very well here in the fourth quarter.
Remmel has this range, hesitation, thought about it. Now it's back to Solberger. Sutter, the jump pass and a turnover. Jones picked it off.
Thrown right at Jones. She did not have to work very hard for that.
Nice dish down low and the finish by Kimler.
Dunlap quick on the inbound, so you can tell Dunlap they still want to run it here.
Remmel trying to make something happen, and she coughs it up. Joey, how about Washington's response to that surge by Dunlap?
The seas started getting a little rough. You know, the tides weren't churning in their favor, but Washington, they've stayed the course here. And they may emerge from that Dunlap run, but Dunlap is still pressing. Remmel will get called for the foul there. Yeah, I still think Dunlap is just a steal and a score away, and just kind of a little bit away from kind of sparking the wildfire and getting back into this one. But Washington, big for them, Larry, here. Next couple of minutes, watch for them to play very slowly. We watched them run down a lot of clock at the end of the third quarter. They held the ball for much of that quarter's last 4 minutes. Dunlap's going to make it very hard for them to do that again, but if they could run 30 seconds, even a minute off the clock here, that would be big. No shot clock in the IHSA, of course, just yet.
Joey, that foul on Remmel is her 4th, so she goes to the bench. That is huge. Dunlap's leading scorer, averaging 16 points a game, has just 7 tonight, mostly due in part to that foul trouble. And that foul there on Solberger brings us to our final masked timeout. And we take this opportunity to remind you that tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Jake Weston State Farm in Washington. Call 309-444-4441 for all your insurance needs. It's Jake from State Farm. And by Uftring Weston Chevy Cadillac in Peoria, from the iconic Silverado and Blazer to the luxurious Cadillac XT4 and Escalade. Uftring Weston offers world-class sales and service right here in Peoria. Visit UfteringWeston.com today. And by Uftring Chevrolet in Washington. When you're shopping for a new Chevy in Central Illinois, visit the heart of Chevy country for selection, savings, and more for your trade. UfteringChevy.com. And by Uftring Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram in North Pekin. From Wranglers and Grand Cherokees to Rams and family vans, you'll always get a better bottom dollar at Uftring Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram. Visit UfteringPekin.com today. Clutch Sports Media's presentation of the Mid-Illini Girls Conference Tournament, and we've got a score update from Morton. It's the Potters 27, Metamora 26 at the end of 3 quarters. Metamora looking to beat the Potters for the first time this season, and here in Dunlap, Washington, looking to come out with the upset of the top-seeded Eagles. Washington has lost twice to Dunlap this season, both by pretty close margins, single digits in both games. Lauren Field for 3. It's off to Jill Nardo. We'll go to the free throw line.
That's what Dunlap needs to get back to. If they can get to the free throw line and earn a couple here. We talked right before that timeout, Larry, about how Washington needed to run down a little bit of clock. They didn't do that. Dunlap got it back quick and eerily quiet as the first free throw falls.
Don't want to take any chances. To Jill Nardo, up to 5 points. Her second. Can't get the members bounce. What a play. DeGilinardo back to the rack. Can't finish that time. And that one is out off of the Panthers. So there's still life for the Eagles. Down by 12. With their leading scorer on the bench, it's going to take a lot. But we'll see. Sutter hands off in the corner to Solberger. In trouble. Finds DeGilinardo. Count the bucket and one. When one player's on the bench, Another steps up as the Eagles are surging back.
That has been the story of the game, Larry. Washington lost Claire McDougal early, and they've stepped up since.
DeGilinardo converts the three-point play. She's up to 8 points.
We've been hearing, Larry, our court mic that is in the bleachers. It's kind of hear this noise, and I think that's because the Dunlap boys team is over. They're cheering the Eagles on right now, and they're in the bleachers making a little noise. So if you hear bleacher noise, that's them making that noise. It sounds
like a drum.
It does.
Georgia Duncan drops it in from short range. Duncan had a huge first half, a bit slower in the second half, but she's got 24 points. Eagles. Sutter. No.
In and out, and it's Duncan running the show here for Washington. Hasn't really had to do a whole lot in this second half, and it's been a great defensive show for Washington early on here in the second half and through the balance of this last half, I should say. They haven't had to score a lot of points. They've held Dunlap relatively quiet.
Foul off the ball. Gives Dunlap the ball back, so now they have an opportunity to get back within 10. Joey, you feel like this is one of the biggest possessions of the game?
If not the biggest. Dunlap has only scored 8 points in the fourth quarter.
Erickson the quick take, but not the make. Duncan is fouled on the hand check by Lauren Field. I don't think Heather Cassidy was happy with that call. So that's Field's third. Dunlap in a little bit of foul trouble as Sophia Remmel, the Eagles' leading scorer, checks back in the game with 4 fouls.
Spark plug on offense, Remmel, and she's just going to have to be very careful defensively. And if Dunlap finds themselves in a spot where they do have to start fouling, she can't be the one to do that.
Foul's okay there as Duncan can't convert the 1-and-1. Solberger loses the handle. Unforced errors are something that the Eagles cannot afford.
They certainly can't, and she drove in. We have another look at that up top. You and I do here, Larry, and there was some contact.
Washington inbounds the length of the court, but Vaughn's called for the travel. So Dunlap gets the ball right back with very little time off the clock, and the clock is something that we need to start paying attention to.
They've just got to play calm. There was a little contact that forced that lost dribble last time.
Almost lost it again there. Remmel from the corner, short. Rebound to Scrivener, the lone senior on the Panthers roster, fighting for her basketball career to live another day. Leah Jones picked up by Remmel. She's got to be careful. Duncan slips through the D to the right block. She got it and one.
How about Georgia Duncan now with 26 points this evening, a chance for 27 at the line, and 20 of those, of course, came in the first half, but now she's stepping back up when it matters the most.
Here it got very quiet inside this gym. Duncan converts the three-point play. 27 points for the Washington junior. As a timeout is taken by Kim Barth and the Panthers. It'll be a full timeout, Joey, as Washington up by 14. You got to figure it's going to take a lot for the Eagles to come back and move on to the championship game.
It's going to take a gargantuan effort. Of course, it's been a crazy season, anything but a normal season. You don't want to count anything out these last 3 minutes, we'll call it, but Washington has stepped it back up. You know, Dunlap went on a little bit of what you could call a run to start this fourth quarter. I feel like they had a little momentum. They made some big shots, cut it to 11 at one point, but Washington, every time Dunlap kind of starts to chip into that lead, they step it back up, and that's led by the efforts of Georgia Duncan, but also, you know, look at Leah Jones had a big steal a moment ago. You know, McGinnis and Vaughn have played big minutes and made big plays. It's not just scoring that has Washington ahead by 14 right now. It's been a team effort. You can tell they're playing as a unit. They're picking each other up. They're rolling. See if they can roll for What would that be? I'm not, I was going to try to say how many seconds
About 3 more minutes.
About 3 more minutes, we'll call it.
Perhaps the most impressive part is Washington has played the entire second half without its number 2 scorer, Claire McDougal, who was injured in the second quarter. Georgia Duncan has stepped up in a big way, as has the rest of the team. Carly Vaughn gets ahead on the outlet pass, and a foul is called. That'll be on Field, her 4th. So now Field, as well as Remmel, are playing with 4 fouls. And Joey, that's not good because you're trying to jump passing lanes. You're trying to force turnovers, and you need to be physical to do that.
Certainly,
first one in and out.
Certainly do. 159 seconds left. It was 60 times 3, then subtract 21. But that's still a lot of time left, and a lot of time where you still have to be physical and do anything you can to get your team back into this one.
Vaughn gets the second one down. Thanks for showing your work there, Joey. We know you're not cheating with the calculator.
It's a proof.
Oh, I hated those. Gabby DiGianardo knocks it in from the baseline. Dunlap not dead yet. Duncan in the backcourt. Solberger tried to foul. She slips out of the double team, and the pass is picked off. Remmel nearly lost it. Dunlap needs a score here. Remmel, the leading scorer for the Eagles, limited to 7 so far tonight. Lily Sutter, she's got 8 points inside the arc. DiGianardo's gonna try it. Comes up short. Big rebound for Leah Jones, and a foul on Solberger.
And I think Dunlap was right there to look at a 3. I think that was not a case where you don't need a 3 cliche reared its ugly head. I think they needed that spark. They needed to cut it to 10 even and see one go in. And now Washington, essentially, if they make their free throws, they'll be in very good shape here.
Jones first of 2. Jack in the box is out.
Should be a pretty good 119 seconds for Washington, I would think.
You and your second counter. Second one is off. Rebound Dunlap. The foul strategy works out. Solberger to an open field. It's down. Dunlap down by just 10 now. We say just 10 with 1:52 to go. That's a lot, but with a team that can shoot the 3 like Dunlap, it's certainly not over yet.
It's not, no, and it could be a good 1:52 for Dunlap here. There's that 3, and that's what we talked about, Larry. You see that 3 go in. Now it's 10 points. You've got the momentum, and you can kind of reset. You've got 1:52 seconds to get 10 points back, and I think there will be some situations where maybe they might have to look at fouling, but we saw Washington boys basketball post a big comeback against Morton in the last. They had a little more time left, but functionally it was the same. That started with forcing steals, forcing turnovers, getting into passing lanes, making the inbound pass difficult, converting on shots, of course, but there are going to be so many defensive things that Washington can do here, or that Dunlap can do, excuse me, to get right back into it.
Scrivener trapped in the corner. She's in trouble. Washington needs to get across half court, and they do. They avert a foul. Duncan with it, and they don't want to foul Duncan.
No, and Dunlap wanted a carry there. I think the call was correct, but Scrivener nearly lost her handle on that. Dunlap can do a lot here just by making things hectic.
Scrivener dribbles through the paint. Washington in no hurry. Now they need to foul. Field doesn't want to foul. She's got 4 fouls. And now Field will be called for the hand check, if I'm not mistaken. And it will be Lauren Field's 5th foul. So the 5, excuse me, no, that's on Solberger, her 3rd. So that's big. Field averts the foul, and the first free throw is off by Vaughn. Washington has not been making its free throws in the 4th quarter.
No, and the second one, of course, would still be big, but
the second one is down. It is indeed big. Washington up by 11. 1:15 to go. Trip to the Mid-Illini Conference Championship game on the line. Lily Sutter's deep 3 is in. Dunlap, the conference champion, says they're not done yet. Vaughn to the left, blocked by Sutter. She's out in transition. She wants to go coast to coast. Can't finish through contact. And the rebound is out off of the Panthers. Dunlap down by just 8. Joey, do you shoot the 3 here?
I do. I run a set and I look for that three-pointer. Three-pointer makes it a 5-point game. If you get it quick, you're still looking at having 40 seconds left. I do go for the 3, and they've been very efficient from 3 here in the last minute.
It'll be Field to trigger it in. Sutter up top to Solberger. Now Field on the drive, blocked. It was Jones right there. Now Duncan has it. You don't want to foul her. She's got 27 points. She works across half court, and now Dunlap needs to foul somebody. Good ball movement for the Panthers, nearly turned over. Scrivener in the corner, and now a foul by Solberger, and that's her 4th. So Field, Remmel, and Solberger all have 4 fouls.
Yeah, that's going to make it, now you've got a foul with Sutter or DeGilinardo.
Scrivener, the senior, doesn't make the first. Can't ice it. Scrivener, the only senior on this Panthers roster. He's played a big role this year, not exactly in the scoring column, but otherwise. She can't get the second one either. Dunlap's got to go, down by 8. Sutter, Remmel, kicks out. Somebody's got to shoot. Solberger inside, and a travel. Joey, that might do it.
It very well could. I think Dunlap looked like they were trying to go to the perimeter there, and Washington's defense made it tough. Yeah, that was on a pass out to the wing.
Now they're going to have to resort to the foul, the backcourt trap with 2 players with 4 fouls. Not ideal for the Eagles. And it's almost tipped away, but into the hands of Lucy Wilson. The ball is kept in bounds until it wasn't, but it stays with Washington. The official got in the way there, Joey. I'm not sure how well our camera captured that, but quite chaotic action. Great camera work by Jonathan Michael. And Joey, with 6.7 remaining, it's all but over.
It is. Dunlap simply does not have
just ran out of time.
Yeah.
Maybe if there was one more quarter, in case you're just joining us, Washington jumped out to an early first quarter lead, 13-11 after the first frame. It was fast-paced throughout the first half. Washington capitalized on that in the second quarter, held Dunlap to just 3 points in that second quarter. A 10-0 run to start that frame really set the tone for the rest of the ball game. Washington held the ball for much of the third quarter, and in the fourth, Dunlap has roared back, but it looks like it will not be enough. Barring a miracle of all miracles, Washington will move on to face the winner of Morton Metamora, and we're working on a score there. Georgia Duncan inbounds to Leah Jones, and that will do it. The 4th-seeded Panthers upset the regular season champion Dunlap Eagles, and they are moving on to Saturday's Mid-Illini Conference Tournament Championship game.
What a performance, start to finish for Washington. They came out and earned this one. Georgia Duncan steps up, a huge performance. Washington had to battle through some adversity at times. They had a couple of things in the second quarter not quite go their way, and you think maybe that leaves the door open for Dunlap, but by no means. Duncan stepped up, and the Panthers really stepped up on defense. A huge defensive effort for Washington keys them to the win. An 8-point win. Every time these two teams played, Larry, it was close this season. Dunlap won by 5 and Dunlap won by 8, and Washington flips the script with an 8-point win of its own. Great effort, start to finish, for Washington.
And Joey, the old adage holds true tonight in Dunlap. It's hard to beat a team 3 times. And the Panthers don't get beat 3 times by the conference champion Eagles as their season ends ranked 6th in the state in 3A with a record of 13-3. And Joey, I want to go back to the second quarter when Claire McDougall was injured. It seemed like Washington played better after she was injured, largely carried by Georgia Duncan, but it was a true team effort. And so that brings me to my point. Sometimes when a team's best player or one of their best players gets injured, it provides motivation, and it seemed like that was the case tonight for the Panthers.
I think it absolutely was, and I absolutely not a knock on Claire McDougal, because McDougal played very well in the quarter and change that she played. I mean, she scored, she notched some rebounds, and went down with an injury. We saw her, she got some tape on the ankle, and she was on the bench, very much present there throughout the balance of the game, didn't get back in. But when she went down, it was Georgia Duncan that stepped up in the scoring column, but a team effort defensively. I mean, Leah Jones made some big plays. Allie Scribner was very present. Carly Vaughn made some plays. Lucy Wilson, I go back when I think about Lucy Wilson's game, and that big take she had, went straight to the rack against 2 Eagles in the second quarter. Everyone stepped up for Washington. Everyone did what they had to do, and now the Panthers await the winner of Metamora and Morton. We don't have a score update there. Last we checked,
John Michael's working hard on it right now.
Yeah,
he's trying.
And I checked there a moment ago. No update since that third quarter, I don't think. If he can find one, that'd be great. But it's 27-26 Morton after 3. So Washington, they'll know in just a little bit if they're going to Metamora or Morton tomorrow.
And before you check out of the broadcast, we want to remind you that tomorrow we will have coverage of at least one Mid-Illini Conference Tournament Championship game, whether that's both the girls and the boys or just the boys, remains to be seen. We will find out probably in about the next hour. The girls' championship game currently set for 4 p.m. and the boys' championship game currently set for 6 p.m. And, of course, you can watch all of our broadcasts for free on ClutchSportsIL.com. But, Joey, Washington comes out with the upset victory of the top-seeded Dunlap Eagles tonight, 42-34. Any final thoughts before we move into the final day of IHSA basketball in Central Illinois for this school year?
It has been I believe after tomorrow, it will have been a 38-day regular season. Maybe I'm off by a couple days either way on that. But unrelated to the game, go back and watch some of our archived broadcasts. They're on our YouTube channel. We've seen Washington a couple of times. We've seen Dunlap a couple of times now this season. We've seen Dunlap with some incredible highs, and we've seen some good ones from Washington too. And if you're tuning in as an independent outsider, maybe you're a Metamora fan or a fan of a different team, we've probably seen your team have some good ones too. We've had a lot of fun this last month and a week or so. So, yeah, watch those old broadcasts. And tonight, it's what we said a moment ago. Team effort from Washington. They battled some adversity early, but they stepped up, and that's Georgia Duncan, that's Leah Jones, that's Scribner, that's Wilson, Vaughn, everyone. Kimler also played some big minutes for Washington. So they stepped up and earned this one. You could tell they wanted it from the jump, and whether they have the Potters or the Redbirds tomorrow, got to figure that'll be a very compelling game, whoever they play at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
Georgia Duncan leads the team with 27 points, and her teammates will certainly bring it tomorrow. We've got a whole team to thank here at ClutchSportsIL.com tonight. Evan Johnson at the controls, Jonathan Michael, the best in the business behind the tripod, Matt Harrington roaming the sidelines, taking pictures, as well as working social media, and Francisco Alonso helping him out on social media as well. For my partner, Joey Wright, I am Larry Larson saying so long and good night from Dunlap. Washington upsets the top-seeded Panthers, and they're moving on to tomorrow's Mid-Illini Conference Championship game. We will talk to you tomorrow from To Be Determined. So long, everybody.